A New Phase is a horror short story. Some content may not be suitable for all audiences. Listener discretion is advised. Part 1. Wesley was uncertain of his future, but he had hoped that it would be different from his past. He unpacked the grocery bags and put the easy-to-prepare box meals in his designated cabinets of the shared kitchen. His mother helped to put the vegetables and fruit in the proper place. They both knew that it would probably be the last nutritious food to be in this college apartment for quite some time. At least until his mom brought more on her next visit. "I also made you a few meals to get you started. I'm sure the first week of school will keep you busy," she said. "Thanks, Mom, but you don't have to, you know," replied Wesley. He smiled at his mom and felt a tinge of sadness when he looked at her big hazel eyes. They always seemed to have a faint shimmer even when she wasn't particularly emotional. He was happy to be on his own and starting a new chapter, but he was also worried about his mother. She was alone now and just a tiny thing. He often thought it was funny, yet cruel, how age shrank and reduced a person. She wasn't very big to begin with. He supposed that allowing her to still take care of him might give her purpose, keep that internal fire going. "This one is homemade soup. It was my great-grandmother's recipe. Promise you'll eat it," she said with a glance from under her eyebrows. "Ma, you know I don't like soup," Wesley said 1 second before the guilt set in. "Okay, I'll have some later, after pizza." "Okay." "And dessert." "Yeah, right," quipped his mom. "And a few kegs," Wesley teased. "Oh, stop it. I mean it. It's good for you. You'll need your strength." There was less push in her statement and more, "I'm your mother, so you should listen." Wesley hugged his mom. His mom sniffled and pulled a tissue from her pocket. "You call me whenever you can. It can be late if you're up late." "Okay, Mom, I will. Every day if you need to. At least for the first little while, if you need." "Okay, Mom, I will." "When do your roommates get here?" "They are supposed to be here tomorrow." "All right, I love you. Talk to you soon." "Sure thing. I love you too, Mom." Wesley was excited to get unpacked and make his room his own, but he also had a vein of sadness creeping through him. It was very quiet in his apartment. He set up his room and decided that was enough for the first day. That night, he laid his head on his pillow and stared at the string lights across his ceiling. The glow of the lights blurred and peeked in his eyes as he settled. He smiled to hide the fear and sudden loneliness he felt surrounding him. This was real now. He was a grown-up. A battle between exhilaration and despair swirled in Wesley's gut. For a moment, he thought he might lose hold of the panic, almost as if it would push him aside and make him a passenger in his own body. He shook his head and took a deep breath. The fear started to ease. Wesley wiped the wet from his eyes and inhaled deeply. He would be fine. It's one night, and he could handle one night at a time. As he rolled to his side and curled up his knees, he exhaled. The moment passed, and he had won, and then Wesley drifted off to sleep. The next morning, Wesley sprung awake by a dull pounding on the front of the house. He threw on a shirt and pinballed down the hall. Cracking open the front door flooded the apartment with light. A student encumbered with a loosely packed box stood outside. "Oh, hey man, you must be Wes. I'm Scott. Sorry, I tried to text you, but maybe your phone was on silent or maybe you started the party last night?" Wesley scratched his head and extended the door open. "My phone was on. I just crashed hard. Moving is exhausting. You want some help?" Scott nodded with his cap askew. "I brought a crew, but if you want to lend a hand, we could get it knocked out quicker. Then maybe we can cruise around campus and check things out." "Sounds good," said Wes. "Let me get some shoes on." After Scott walked into the apartment, Wesley noticed 2 of his helpers. They were at either end of the mattress. The older one was leading the way and giving more direction than necessary. The other just repeated, "Got it," a dozen or so times. "Oh, guys, this is Wesley. Wes, this is my brother Jim and my dad David." Everyone gave a half wave and almost in unison uttered, "Nice to meet you." "Hey Wes, have you met our other roommate, Luca, yet?" "No, I haven't seen him, but I thought he was supposed to be here by now. Yeah, I only got a brief email from him saying he probably wouldn't be very social because he would be busy with his studies. Sounds like a focused guy. I'm sure he'll be here soon. Yeah, probably. Scott paused just long enough to make it seem like he only now had his next thought. You want to go check out his room? I guess it wouldn't hurt just to peek inside. Scott and Wesley slowed their pace as they approached the bedroom door. After exchanging glances, Scott reached for the doorknob. He paused for half a second, then tapped the door as he turned the knob. He opened the door just a head's width. Wesley felt a rush of shame, but tried to peer over Scott's shoulder. Oh, wow! Scott paused again before opening the door wide. Wesley looked in with wonder. I guess he's been here already, but when? Luca's room wasn't just moved in, it was unpacked. The room looked as though someone had been living there for some time. Wesley and Scott scanned the room with quizzical fingers pointed to the numerous animal mounts perched throughout. Among the books and charts were various other puzzles of animal kingdom. Bones and feathers, furs and footprints dressed every nook. Scott and Wesley were lured in. Scott seemed equal amounts amazed and suspicious. He stepped towards the bookcase closest to the door. Whoa, is this a dog skull? I don't know, maybe a cougar? A shaky voice from the hallway cut in. It's actually a wolf skull. Wesley and Scott's heads spun around to find a timid boy with glasses in the doorway. The boy was holding a box with paws and instruments leaning over the edges. Wesley stood stunned with his jaw open. Scott regained his presence and spoke first. Oh, hey man, you must be Luca. I'm Scott. Hi, I'm Wes. Sorry, we didn't know if you were here yet. The awkwardness of the situation had seemed to be lifted, at least until Luca spoke. It was evident that very few moments in Luca's life were not awkward. Yeah, I got here Tuesday. Wesley and Scott expected more of Luca's story to come, but after a long pause, it appeared they would not get it. Wesley tried to fill the silence. So, it looks like you unpacked and are all moved in. Scott and I were just going to take a walk around campus and check things out. Do you want to join us? Luca's eyes looked everywhere except at Wesley and Scott. Oh no, I need to get this box arranged, then I have class in the morning. I need to prepare. Scott raised an eyebrow. You need to prepare for the first day? Wesley let the last comment linger. No problem. We'll have plenty of time to hang out. Wesley moved into the hallway. We'll see you later. Nice to meet you. Scott gave Luca half a glance and then moved towards Wesley. Luca used the box in his hands to close the bedroom door behind Scott. Wesley and Scott nodded in agreement that they had just shared a strange exchange. Wesley and Scott roamed the grounds of the university and tried to make note of all the important landmarks. They made small talk with some of the other students they met along the way. Scott chatted with the girl working the counter of the school store. Wesley did his best to look interested in the sandals emblazoned with the school logo while he waited. Scott smiled and the girl giggled as he bought an overpriced visor before moving on. Wesley and Scott wandered until the sun drifted behind the tree line. Their last stop before home was the corner store where they each acquired college-appropriate junk food. Wesley fumbled with his keys for the apartment. Although he didn't have many keys to his ring, they had nearly doubled this weekend. Both boys felt a small sense of ease as they both walked into what would be their home for the next few months. Wesley sat on the couch, positioned in front of the TV. Scott slung his legs sideways over the arm of the chair adjacent. I feel better about starting school and being here after our walk around, said Wesley. I like to have an idea of where I need to go. Yeah, I feel better after meeting Corinne, snickered Scott. He flashed his phone with a photo of the school store cashier towards Wesley. The next morning, Wesley was startled awake by his phone. His mind was too foggy to determine whether his alarm was going off or if someone was calling him. He stared at his phone for a long second before gaining full consciousness. Oh, hey, Mom, he half whispered. Good morning, hon. I just wanted to make sure you were up and ready for your first day. Yep, I'm up now, thanks. Okay, good. Now I don't want you to worry. You're going to have a great day. You know how you can get sometimes. Just take some deep breaths if you start to feel like, everything is going to be fine. Thanks, Mom. I feel fine. I'm actually really excited about everything. Plus, I've got my pills if I need them. I gotta get moving now, though, so I'll call you tonight and let you know how it is. Love you. Okay, love you too. Over the next month, Wesley made small steps towards his goal of breaking old habits and becoming a new person. He eventually lost the need to check his schedule before and after every class. He started to recognize other students in his class. He was even able to call a few of them by name. The big step came when he no longer needed to keep his pill bottle in his pocket. It had made its way to his backpack, and by the end of the month, it found a home on his dresser. Wesley's view of the world was changing with his personal advances. He noticed the colors in the leaves as they flared into fall. He stared less at his shoes and was able to wave his glance across the faces he passed. His dreams had become something new as well. Never before in his life did he have a recurring dream. This dream was of his dad. Every night he would see his father in his dreams, but only as he was leaving a room. Wesley would walk to follow his father, but when he reached the next room, his father would vanish. These were more than just the average dream. They were so real, in augmented sense and saturated colors. With each sighting in consecutive dreams, Wesley would follow a little further and get a little closer, but would never catch up to him. The last night he dreamt of his father, Wesley had followed him through several rooms, down the hall, and out of the front door, down the steps, and into a field. He felt the soft grass under his toes. He could see his father cast blue under the moonlight, and he heard the crickets chirp nearby. As he finally closed the distance between him and his father, Wesley reached his hand out to tap his father's flannel shoulder. When his father turned around, Wesley stumbled backward at the vision. There was a starburst of crimson tearing through his shirt. Blood ran along his father's fingertips. The final jolt that woke Wesley from his dream was his dad's eyes overcome with terror. Wesley spasmed into consciousness and took several deep breaths of night air to realize he was not in the comfort of his own bed. He was standing alone in the empty college courtyard. The hum of the walkway lights buzzed in his ears, and he searched for clues to his arrival here. He was in his t-shirt and shorts that he wore into bed every night. The grass was damp between his toes. As his focus started to pull him back into understanding, he noticed the dampness was more than just evening dew. He was standing in a circle, surrounded by 3 dead rabbits. Blood soaked the ground beneath his feet. Wesley jumped back and once again looked around to find another face to acknowledge this was no longer a dream. But all he found in the darkness were 2 flashes of what appeared to be 2 floating coins. Then those coins blinked, and a low rumble from what must have been a primitive beast rolled through the night air. Wesley turned and ran to his apartment. He ran so fast that he didn't feel the bits of gravel and stone as he sprang his bare feet across the pavement. Fear consumed his body so much that he never looked back, knowing that it would only slow him down. He reached his home door and was relieved to see it was unlocked and half open. Wesley dove through the door and pressed his body against it to shut out the dream-turned-nightmare. 1 week later, Wesley smiled and grabbed the remote for the TV. Oh nice, they're playing some old Hammer horror with Peter Cushing. Scott, staring into his phone, mumbled, "That's cool. I used to watch the Creature double feature with my grandma when she babysat me. I'm not sure I was old enough to be watching them, but I don't remember having too many nightmares from them." Scott glanced at the TV before being drawn back into his phone. "Yeah, wasn't that dude in Edward Scissorhands?" "No, that was Vincent Price, but that's pretty close. Do you think we should see if Luca is here? See if he wants to hang out?" Scott stood up, but didn't look up. "I'll go check." Wesley was sure that Scott would walk into a wall as he shuffled down the hall. Scott gave a light back-knuckle knock on Luca's door. "Hey Luca, you here? Want to watch old scary movies?" Scott was texting as he waited, then tried the door. Wesley heard the door open and nothing else. He didn't know why, but he thought the whole house got quieter for the moments Luca's room was open. Scott closed the door and started back. "Nope, not here." Scott then turned towards his own room door. "Hey Wes, go on without me. I'm gonna be in my room for a bit." Scott went back to his chat with Corinne from the store, walked into his room, and closed the door. Well, okay then. Wesley backed into the cushions and opened his convenience store snacks. He was a little relieved that he could enjoy the movie in silence. Sure, it would be fun to have friends share in his indulgence of the film, but if they were not as amused by it, then Wesley would have just found them distracting. As he watched, he found the sparse soundtrack soothing. His shoulders dropped and his neck was loose. He thought to himself that this was the first moment since coming here that he could relax. His eyes floated from screen to snack and on occasion to the furnishings of the room. The couch was his and most familiar. The TV stand was also his, but in a new setting, it seemed slightly alien. Other things, like the chair Scott had draped himself over earlier, were completely new to him. He felt his eyelids settling lower. He blinked with a nod. He knew there was not much of a chance he would see the end of this scene. Peter Cushing was searching for a monster, but it had been a long time since there was much action. For a moment, Wesley considered curling up on the couch, but he knew if he did, that would be the end of the night for him. He reached for his drink on the end table and felt a sense of dread. He hung in mid-grasp of the drink and looked out the window. He stared hard and blinked harder. There were eyes outside in the bushes looking at him. At least he thought they were eyes. Was it an illusion of lighting? Had he been too entangled in the horror film? No. He was sure something was looking at him, but it didn't move. He stared harder and could see fur, or what he believed was fur around the fixed gaze. He swallowed and stood up quickly. Before Wesley had taken a step, the eyes disappeared. It was a large shape. An animal for sure, but a large one. What the hell? Wesley grabbed for his phone. The creature had vanished, but he thought he might be able to capture a video of it moving in the distance. He went to the window and looked out. He scrolled through his phone for his camera without looking. Scott opened his door and poked his head out. You all right? There was something outside our window, staring at me. Scott switched from half-hearted into half-concerned. What do you mean something? Like a squirrel? No, it was bigger, way bigger. Probably a raccoon. They love all the junk food we students eat. My brother told me about this one raccoon he had in his campus. They called him Fat Gus. They used to bring it. Wesley turned sharply. It was not a raccoon. I swear it looked like a wolf or a werewolf, like from the movies. Oh man, you probably just got caught up in that old scary movie. No, I thought that at first too, but when I stood up, it moved and ran away. Like on its hind legs and ran like a man. Wesley started to feel panic set in. His vision started to narrow and he could hear his pulse in his jaw. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes. Scott shook his head and looked to be thinking for a moment. Hey, it was probably some jerk in a costume. Seniors like to pull pranks on us freshmen. My brother told me a ton of stories. Wesley paused for the first time at what Scott said. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's gotta be it. Just close the curtains and call it a night. You need some rest. Wesley started to calm down. He did close the curtains and walked to the front door to lock it. He convinced himself that Scott was probably right. Just some senior playing pranks. He went on with his nighttime routine and got ready for bed. His heart went back to being invisible. After brushing his teeth, he went to his room, making sure to close and lock his bedroom door. He double-checked the window lock and closed the curtains perfectly. Reading wasn't always part of his usual process before bed, but it was tonight. Maybe he planned on drifting off to sleep after reading. Also, maybe tonight he was too tired to get up after reading and turn off his room light. When the night started to stretch into later afternoon, Wesley's confidence began to stretch as well. He walked into the apartment and set the weight of his backpack down for the weekend. Scott poked his head out of his room. Hey Wes, you got plans tonight? No, I thought about going to Sal's and getting some pizza. I hear it's pretty good there. Yeah, we can do that, but after that, Corinne invited me to a big Halloween party for her sorority house tonight. Oh, sorority house party? I don't know. Wesley was feeling more extroverted than usual, but his mental bar had only risen to the level of popular pizzeria on his scale of outgoingness. Come on, you gotta go. Corinne has lots of friends. You want to make new friends, don't you? Scott wrapped his arm around Wesley's shoulder. Yeah, but is it going to be stereotypical with all sorority girls and frat boys? No. I've talked to her a lot, and there will be plenty of us regular students there too. Plus, she's not like that. I can't show up solo. I need my crew. Is Luca going? Wesley asked. No. I mean, I did ask him, but he had some Stargazer Club meeting or something. But you and my crew. Wesley could see this conversation was not going to end soon unless he committed to going. He sighed and looked around. Yeah, alright. Awesome! This is gonna be so much fun! But if the scene isn't for me, I might just sneak out and go trick-or-treating. Are you okay if I cut out early? Oh yeah, I'm totally fine with that. If it's lame, I'll duck out there too. Wesley nodded in agreement, but he knew Scott would be interested in staying as long as Corinne was interested in him. He took a moment to himself and smiled with a new sense of pride and hope. Wesley and Scott were 2 blocks from Corinne's sorority house when they began to hear music. They were able to throw together costumes for the event. Wesley fashioned a lumberjack outfit out of a flannel shirt, a hat, and a fake beard. Scott converted a bedsheet and some belts into a Roman uniform. They accessorized their costumes with a quick stop at the mostly empty Halloween store. Wesley grabbed a fake axe, and Scott found a partially broken laurel wreath crown. Scott's eyes widened as Wesley's eyes drifted. Wesley put his head down and moved forward while his body started to resist. Maybe the costume could help him hide in plain sight. He was determined to push his comfort zone further tonight, even if it was just for a little while. As they got closer, Wesley began to feel something else. He looked around the neighborhood, expecting to catch someone's stare. The autumn air chilled his neck and made the hair on his arm stand at attention. The sun was setting, and the shadows started to blend. Dried leaves chased down the sidewalks and chattered by them. That's the end of part 1. Tune in to part 2 by clicking the link on screen or in the description below. Special thanks to my group of early readers, Beth Bevan, Mary McHenry, author and game master Mick McArt, my cousins Laura Bell, Sarah Bernard, Vicky Vanneman, and my wife Juliana Williams. Story and narration by Josh Will. Music written and recorded by Stephen Bedford. Music produced and engineered by Calvin Bunn. Sound effects courtesy of Zapsplat.com. A New Phase is a copyright and production of Foshkosh Studios, LLC. All rights reserved. Any reproduction in whole or in part is prohibited without prior written consent. Thank you. Come back soon.